This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem says she wants to build relationships with tribal communities, but a Native American lawmaker says her stance on the Keystone XL pipeline will further strain relations. The governor mentioned tribes and the project this week in her address to the legislature. Lee Strubinger reports.
Republican Governor Kristi Noem says she wants to build state-tribal relations. She says those bonds could address challenges tribes face in education, law and order, and economic development. But the only other time tribes were mentioned during her State of the State address was in relation to pending construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. The route will pass nearby several of the state's reservation borders. During her speech, Noem indicated issues could arise during her tenure that will require the strength and resolve of the state's first responders, military, and law enforcement. She says they are training and preparing for any kind of actions taken against pipeline construction.
Let me be very clear on this. I want the construction of this pipeline to be safe, clean, and efficient. We will make sure that our people, our water, and our environment are protected. My administration will work with the tribes, the companies, and the necessary, and if necessary, law enforcement to make this as uneventful as possible.
State Senator Troy Heinert is the minority leader and a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. He says it will take a lot of work to build trust between communities.
I heard her stance on the Keystone Pipeline. You know, that is not a very popular stance in tribal communities. So getting to work on that, and we want people to be safe as well. We don't want to see anyone injured if this was to go through. But if we're going to talk about creating habitats and conservation, then I also think it's fair that they listen to our concerns as well.
The Keystone XL project is tied up in the courts, and pipeline construction is halted. I'm Lee Strubinger in Pierre, South Dakota.
Protests were held across Canada this week after the arrests of several Indigenous people in British Columbia who are opposing a pipeline. Dan Karpinchuk reports.
From Vancouver to Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and as far as Halifax on the East Coast, people marched in support of the anti-pipeline protesters who were arrested. That came after Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers took apart a gate that blocked access to a site where a natural gas pipeline is to be built. The pipeline is part of a $40 billion project aimed at carrying liquefied natural gas from British Columbia to Asia. Protesters ignored court orders to take down access barriers, and that's when police moved in, taking 14 into custody. John Ridsdale is a hereditary chief of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. He says he was shocked and angered that police moved in on the barrier.
It is our responsibility to look after the land. We need clean water, clean air, clean land. We need access. This is how we teach our children for the future to look after this. Now, if you restrict us the way that they're doing it right now, how could we teach them the proper way to honor and respect land and each other?
Elsewhere, protesters even stormed a venue where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was to speak. After changing the venue, Trudeau finally got to speak.
There's a lot of work ahead of us. I don't want to dwell on the past, but you know and I know that previous governments and institutions spent years ignoring your communities and your concerns.
The pipeline issue has split many First Nations in the region, and even within the Wet'suwet'en. Experts say one of the issues is the main difference between elected and hereditary Indigenous governments. Band councils run reserves and services, but hereditary chiefs control activities on traditional territories. For National Native News, I'm Dan Karpinchuk.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced at the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios by Kawanak Broadcast Corporation. Funding is by Odawi Law Group, provider of Indian law solutions, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, with support from the Public Radio Satellite System.
Support by the New Mexico Small Business Development Center, who can help business owners and entrepreneurs with business advising and training to develop skilled entrepreneurs and strong businesses for New Mexico. More info at nmsbdc.org. Support by the Herd Museum, hosting the 29th Annual Hoop Dance World Championship, where you can see more than 80 talented native hoop dancers vie for the championship title February 9th and 10th. Details at herd.org.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.